Alright guys, I told you I would work the last review worksheet out and post a video for you. Trying to get this off of my screen. There we go. Okay. So we are going to start with our steps that we wrote in class last week. We are going to start with determining our A, our B, and our C for each problem. So for this problem, A is 1. Remember, it's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. I don't see anything multiplied by just x, so that tells me that b is 0. C is the constant, or -3. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I can go ahead and put in my y-intercept. My y-intercept is always my c, and so we're going to put that in as an ordered pair. And now I'm looking for my vertex, but before I can find my vertex, I need to find my axis of symmetry. So my axis of symmetry, the formula is opposite of b over 2a. So in this case, x equals the opposite of 0 over 2 times 1. So that's 0, the opposite of 0, which is just 0 over 2. So now we know our axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Remember, axis of symmetry has to be an equation, and x equals some number. The axis of symmetry is always the x-coordinate of our vertex. Remember, our vertex has to be an ordered pair as well. So to find our vertex, we plug our axis of symmetry in the original equation. So now for our vertex, we already have the x here, so we need the y. The y equals 0 squared minus 3. 0 squared is 0, minus 3 is -3. So now we know that y of our vertex is -3. So that goes in this spot. If A is positive and A is positive here, we know our vertex opens up, which means our vertex is the lowest point, which means we have a minimum. And our minimum is always the same as our y-coordinate of our vertex. So y equals -3. So that is the lowest y point there could be, or y-coordinate there could be. So normally we have a couple more points here, but now our y-intercept and our vertex are the same, so that's out of the ordinary, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and plot that point. Normally we would go ahead and plot our y-intercept, which we just did, and then we plot our vertex, and they would be at different points. In this case, the points are the same. The points are the same. So that just means we need extra points over here. Normally we only need 1 point, but now because our vertex and our axis, our y-intercept are the same, we're going to use 2 points. On your test, make sure you're always sketching in your axis of symmetry, and that's going to be a dotted line through the vertex. Remember, the vertex is 0, -3, as is the y-intercept here. So now we only have 1 point, we need 5 points. So this is where we're going to use 1 and then probably 2. So here I'm going to plug in 1 into the original equation, which is x squared minus 3. So y equals 1 squared minus 3, and that is -2. You can do that on your calculator. So now I have an ordered pair of 1, -2. I'm going to go ahead and plot that point, 1, -2. And remember, I can always mirror my pointer on the axis of symmetry. So when I put 1 point in the table, it's going to give me 2 points on my graph. So 1 to the right, I mirror it by doing 1 to the left. And I need 5 points. You always have to have 5 points, so we're going to plug in 2 for x. So 2 would be my x-coordinate. So y equals 2 squared minus 3. 4 minus 3 is 1, or you can do it on your calculator. So now I have this ordered pair 2, 1. over 2 and up 1. Now I can mirror that point. This is 2 to the right of the axis of symmetry. I can go 2 to the left. Now I have my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And I sketch my parabola. If you don't sketch your parabola, you don't get full credit for the problem. The whole point is to graph it. Okay, we're moving on to number 2. We always start by identifying our A, B, and our C. I'm going to do it out here this time. A is negative 1, remember. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So A, negative 1, B is 8, positive 8, and C is negative 4. C is always our y-intercept, so we could go ahead and put that in here. The y-intercept is always x is 0, and the y-intercept is whatever C is, or the y-coordinate is whatever C is. So now, like we did up here, we need our vertex, but before we can find our vertex, we have to find our axis of symmetry, because that is going to be our x-coordinate, right? The axis of symmetry is going to be x equals, right? Before we do that, we could also go ahead and do our maximum minimum. If this is a negative number, now we know that our parabola opens down. If our parabola opens down, that means the vertex is going to be the very highest point. It's going to be a maximum. So in a few minutes, we'll be able to figure out what our maximum is, because our maximum is our y-coordinate. So we already know it's a maximum. We're going to find out what it is. But we're starting with our axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry, x equals the opposite of b over 2a. So x equals the opposite of b, which is positive 8, divided by 2 times negative 1, because that's what a is. Negative 8 over negative 2, and now we know our axis of symmetry simplifies to positive 4. X equals 4. It's got to be an equation, x equals. So plug that in here. This has to be the x-coordinate of our vertex. So we have half of our vertex. So now, just like we did up here, to find our vertex, we're going to use the 4 and plug it in to our original equation. So y equals the opposite of x squared, so that's 4 squared, plus 8 times 4 minus 4. So you can do that on your calculator, and you're going to get 12. Okay. It's going to be, this graph is not going to fit that very well, but on your test, don't worry, it will fit. But for here, we're just not going to worry about it. We're just going to kind of drag it off. It's going to be all right. So here, our y-coordinate of our vertex is 12. It's going to go in here. And that makes the y equals 12 is also our maximum. The maximum y-coordinate can be 12. It can be anything bigger than that. So from here, because our vertex and our y-intercept are not the same, we are going to go ahead and graph y-intercept at negative 4, vertex at 4, 12, so that's 4, that's about 8. I know it's up in our other graph, but we're going to go about up to here, 4, 12. We have to draw our axis of symmetry, which is a vertical line through our y-intercept at x equals 4, remember. So we're going to draw that line there. We use that line to mirror our points. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mirror our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is 4 here. To get to the x-axis, we go 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to point 4 on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've mirrored this point. It means it's another point on equal distance on the other side of that axis of symmetry. And now we need to pick one more point. And I'm going to pick one somewhere in between this point and 4. So I'm going to pick 1. because I don't want to pick anything like -4. It's going to give me a point way out far away. So I'm going to pick one in between these 2 points. So the x-coordinates in between here would be 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to use 1. So remember, the original equation is y equals the opposite of x squared plus 8 times x minus 4. So if I replace x with 1, y equals the opposite of 1 squared plus 8 times 1 minus 4. If you do that on your calculator, you plug it in as 1x squared, then the negative, plus 8 times 1 minus 4. And you should get 3. So that would be -1 plus 8 is 7, minus 4 is 3. So y is 3, so now our order pair is 1, 3. So now we need to plot that point on our coordinate plane, start at the origin, over 1 and up 3. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points, but we need 5, so we can mirror this point. This is 1, 2, 3 to the left of the axis of symmetry. I can go 1, 2, 3 to the right and draw my parabola. Remember, it's not supposed to be a V, it's supposed to be a little rounded like a U, so don't make it pointy. And remember, on your test, you won't be going off the graph like this. Okay, we'll move on to the second page, number 3. I'm going to start identifying our A, our B, and our C. Always doing everything in the same order, and that will keep us from making a careless mistake. So I know my y-intercept is -2. I can go ahead and put that in. This is a positive number, so I know my parabola opens up. So I know it's going to be a minimum. Did we put in? Yeah, we did put our maximum in there. Okay. I don't know what my minimum is yet because that's the y-coordinates of our vertex. Remember, our vertex is an ordered pair. Our axis of symmetry is an x-only equation. So once we identify our A, B, and C, we went ahead and put our y-intercept in there. Now we need to find our vertex. Before we can do that, we've got to find our axis of symmetry, because our axis of symmetry is an x value that is the vertex x coordinate. So the opposite of B over 2a, x equals the opposite of -6 divided by 2 times a, and so that's 6 divided by 2, so our axis of symmetry is a vertical line through 3, x equals 3. And that 3 goes in our vertex spot. To find our y spot, we plug in 3 in for this equation. So the original equation was x squared minus 6x minus 2. Now everywhere there's an x, we're going to put in 3. So y equals 3 squared minus 6 times 3 minus 2. And you can put this in your calculator. 3x squared button minus 6 times 3 minus 2. And it will give you -11. So our y-coordinate for our vertex is -11. And our minimum y value is going to be -11. So y equals -11. That is the minimum y value. So it can't be anything below that. So from this point, this is when we start graphing. We're going to plot our y-intercept at 0, -2. And then we're going to plot our vertex, and this is when it's going to be off the graph, but remember on your test tomorrow it won't be. To the right 3, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to say it's about right there. And we're going to draw our axis of symmetry through that point. Now this is where, that's our vertex. We're going to mirror our y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 3 on this side. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 on this side. Now we have 1, 2, 3 points. We need 5. So if we plug 1 in to our equation, y equals x squared minus 6x minus 2, we'll plot that point and mirror it, and we'll have our 5 points. So I'm going to plug in something between here and here, the x value, so it's going to be 1 or 2. So I'm going to plug in 1. Let's plug in positive 1. So I know my order pair will be 1 and something. So I'm got to figure out what my y is. Y equals 1 squared minus 6 times 1 minus 2. So just do that on your calculator, and you'll get negative 7. 1 minus 6 is negative 5, minus 2 is negative 7. But your calculator will do that for you. Okay, so now we're going to plot that point over 1 and down 7, 5, 6, 7 about. And now we get to mirror that point. So this is 1, 2 away from the axis of symmetry. We're going to go 1, 2 on the other side. So now we're going to sketch our parabola and we're done. Remember, it can't be a V, it's got to be a U. Alright, number 4, finding our A, our B, and our C. Our A is a coefficient on the x squared, negative 2. Our B is a coefficient on the x, it's 2. Our C is always our constant, 3. Our C is also always our y-intercept, 0, 3. So our y-intercept is a point on the y-axis. So the 0 has to be the x-coordinate, otherwise it wouldn't be on the y-axis. Okay, we need our vertex, but to do that we have to find our axis of symmetry. So our axis of symmetry, remember, is going to be an x equals equation, and our vertex is going to be an ordered pair. This is a negative A here, so I know my parabola is going to open down, which means my vertex, my turning point, is the highest point, so this is a maximum. So we're going to keep, we don't know what it is yet, but we're going to find it in a second. So axis of symmetry is the opposite of B over 2A. So x equals the opposite of 2 over 2 times negative 2. So that opposite of positive 2 is negative 2, and that's negative 4. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 1/2. X equals 1/2, and that makes our x-coordinate here 1/2. Okay, so now we need our y-coordinate of our vertex, which is also going to be our maximum y value. So we are going to go ahead and plug this into our equation. So y equals negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 3. Everywhere there's an x, we're going to plug in 1/2, so here and here. Y equals negative 2 times 1/2 squared plus 2 times 1/2 plus 3. And you can convert that to a decimal, or you can use the ABC buttons on your calculator. But this is going to simplify to negative 2 times 1/4, so it's going to be negative 1/2 plus 1 plus 3. So y is 3.5 or 7/2. It doesn't matter. You can use either one. So we can use, if we're going to use a decimal here, we could use a decimal there, or we can turn this into a fraction. Doesn't matter. I like the decimal because it makes it easier to graph with. So we are going to go ahead, get rid of all this kind of messy stuff up here. Alright, so now we know that our y-coordinate is 3/2. And we're going to turn, 3.5. And so 3.5, if we do it on our calculator, we can turn that into a fraction. That would be 7/2. So since I have a half here, I'm going to put 7/2 here. But I like the decimal, it'll help me graph it here in a second. Alright, so if my vertex is 1/2 and 7/2, remember that's the same as 3/2. My maximum is the same as my y-coordinate. So y equals 7/2 or 3/2, no, 3.5, I don't care what you use. So we filled all this in, now it's time to start plotting things. I went and plotted my y-intercept earlier. Oh, this is 0, +3. I plotted it, but I plotted it wrong, right? So this is going to be over 0, up 3, +3. My vertex is 1/2 and 7/2. Remember, that's 1/2 and 3.5. So you may want to use decimals if that makes more sense to you. 0.5 and 3.5. That's the same as 1/2 and 7/2. So 0.5 is a half. I'm going to go halfway between these two positive, 1/2, and then up 1, 2, 3, and a half. So that's my vertex. I'm going to sketch my axis of symmetry always through my vertex. Using that axis of symmetry to find some mirror points, remember? So now I can mirror my y-intercept. We have to go a half here, we can go a half on the other side, and now I have 3 points. I'm going to plug in, I'm going to do 2. I got to do someplace, I can't do anything in between here, it's too close, but I can do +2. So I'm going to plug it in here, y equals -2x squared plus 2x minus 3. I know that's going to be my x-coordinate, 2. Y equals -2 times 2 squared plus 2 times 2 minus 3. -2 times 4 is -8 plus 4 minus 3. That is going to be -7. Is that right? Let me double check it. I'm going to use the calculator here too. Everything is squished in there. Let's double check that. Okay, I see that I copied my equation wrong up here. There should have been +3. +3. So now I know that when x is 2, y is -1. So my ordered pair is 2, -1. So from the origin, I go right 1, 2, and down 1. Now 1, 2, 3, 4 points. I need 5, so I'm going to mirror this point. This is 1 and a half. I'm going to go a half and 1, and a point equal distance from that axis of symmetry. So now I'm going to sketch my parabola because I have my 5 points. Remember, not a V. It's got to look like a U, and it's got to have arrows on the ends. Okay. So that is the graphing. For these, you're going to find the vertex, axis of symmetry, y-intercept, and maximum or minimum. So I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker since I've gone through these other pretty painstakingly. So 5, we need the vertex. We're going to abbreviate. So we need the vertex, the axis axis of symmetry, we need the y-intercept, and max, min, and the value. So we're going to tell whether it's a maximum, minimum, and give the value. So vertex, axis of symmetry, y-intercept. Okay, so here we go. Whenever we're doing this, we're always starting with our A, B, and C. So for 5, A is 1, B is 0, C is -5. So I already know my y-intercept, because it's always C. So y-intercept is 0, -5. So I need my axis of symmetry. I'm going to do that before I do my vertex. Remember, my vertex is an ordered pair. My axis of symmetry is x equals something. So x equals the opposite of b. Well, b was 0, we said. So that's opposite of 0 divided by 2 times 1. So x is 0. So our axis of symmetry is 0. And that is also our x-coordinate of our vertex. Now we take that 0 and plug it in here to find our y-coordinate. So our y-coordinate equals 0 squared minus 5, which is -5. So this is the case. We see that our vertex and our y-intercept are the same. We have to remember also this y value is our maximum or minimum. Since this opens up, because that's positive, now we know it's a minimum value. So you're going to circle that and tell me that that is y equals -5. Number 6. Alright, A, B, C. I'm going a little faster. We've been doing quite a few of them. Opposite of B over 2 times A. 4 over 2. So our x axis symmetry is 2. And so x equals 2, and our x-coordinate of our vertex is 2. So now our y is this 2, plug it into the original equation, 2 squared, minus 4 times 2 minus 7. So the y-coordinate is 4 minus 8 is 4, -4 minus 7 is -11. So this is a positive A here, positive 1, so we know this opens up. That means this is a minimum, so a minimum value, and it's always the same as your y. So our minimum is y equals -11, and I forgot to put in our y-intercept here is 7, -7. So that is number 6. Moving right along, we're going to go to number 7. I've been talking all the way through these, so I'm not going to talk as much. So these are all the things we know. So this is number 7. Number 7, A is 1, B is 0, C is 2. Y-intercept is 0, 2. Right, our axis of symmetry is going to be x equals X equals the opposite of 0, so it's going to be 0 again, right? Because it's a 0 in the numerator. So X equals 0, and that is our, so when we plug in here, our vertex and our y-intercept are the same again, and we'll prove it. Y equals 0 squared plus 2, so that's 2. So our vertex is 0, 2, and our y-intercept is 0, 2. Y is 1. Remember, our vertex or our parabola opens up. That makes our vertex a minimum. So we're going to circle minimum, and it's y equals 2. All right, just going down to number 8. Number 8. Right here, A is negative 3, B is negative 12, and C is negative 3. So remember, they didn't ask us to graph these, and you're going to have problems like this on the test where you're not going to graph, you're just finding these things. So we're going to find the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the y-intercept. You have to tell if it's a maximum or a minimum value, if the vertex is a maximum or a minimum. So remember, the vertex is an ordered pair. Axis of symmetry is x equals. The y-intercept are going to give us an ordered pair where it's always 0 and whatever c is. So we've already found our y-intercept. And then the maximum minimum value will be our y-coordinate. Okay, to find our vertex first, we find our axis of symmetry. So that's x equals the opposite of b, so the opposite of negative 12 divided by 2 times a, which is negative 3. So 12 over negative 6 is negative 2. So axis of symmetry is negative 2. X equals negative 2. Remember, that is our x-coordinate of our vertex. So to find our y, we plug our negative 2 into the original equation, which I can't see anymore. So that was negative 3x squared minus 12x minus 3. So we're going to plug in negative 2 here and here. Negative 3 times negative 2 squared minus 12 times negative 2 minus 3. You can do that on your calculator. You're going to get negative 3 times 4. 12 minus, nope, 12, negative 12 plus 24. 12 minus 3 is 9. I'm going to check myself on here just to make sure. Yes, it's 9. So when x is negative 2, y is 9, that's our vertex. Now, a is negative. That means this parabola opens down, right? And that means the vertex is a maximum point. So we're going to circle this. And our maximum point is when y equals 9. The highest point is the vertex, and that's the height would be the 9. Alrighty, 9. Y equals x squared minus 10x plus 3. Let's see if that's right. Y equals x squared minus 10x plus 3. Okay. We are finding our vertex, our axis of symmetry, our y-intercepts, and we're telling if there is a maximum or our minimum and given the value of it. So first thing we do, A, B, and C. A is 1, B is negative 10, and C is positive 3. This is always our y-intercept, so we're going to go ahead and go down here. Remember, it's the order pair 0, negative 3. We need a vertex to do that. We're going to start with our axis of symmetry. The opposite of B, so it's the opposite of negative 10, divided by 2 times A, which is 1. Opposite of negative 10, positive 10, divided by 2, so x equals 5 is our axis. This is our axis of symmetry we were finding. X equals 5. Remember, our vertex is an ordered pair, and that x, axis of symmetry x, is the x for the vertex. To find the y, we plug in 5 in for x and x here. So 5 squared minus 10 times 5 plus 3. 25 minus 50 is negative 25 plus 3 is negative 22, I believe. So that y value is the y value of our vertex, and it's also going to be our maximum or minimum value. Since this is positive, we know our parabola opens up, makes our vertex a minimum point, and it's always this value. It's always this right here. Y equals negative 22. And almost done. Y equals 2x squared plus 16x plus 3. I've forgotten it already. 2x squared plus 16x plus 3. If you're watching this, I'll give you a heads up. You're only going to have 6 problems on your test. Alright, I did do that. Write the problem correctly. Alright, and last one, we need our vertex. We need our axis of symmetry. We need our y-intercept. And we have to tell if we have a maximum or a minimum value and what that value is. So always start with our identifying our A, B, and C. So y-intercept, just go ahead and put it in. It's always a 0 in the x spot, and whatever C is. We need a vertex. We know it's going to be an ordered pair. But we have to start with our axis of symmetry here. It's going to be an x equals equation. So x equals the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. So that's negative 16 divided by 4. So our axis of symmetry is negative 4. X equals negative 4. Remember, our axis of symmetry is the x-coordinate for our vertex. Now we just need our y. We find our y-coordinate by plugging in negative 4 here and here in our original equation. So for the x's here and here. So 2 times negative 4 squared plus 16 times negative 4 plus 3. So y equals 32 minus 64 is negative 32 plus 3, negative 29. You guys can do that on your calculator. Remember, if you're putting it on the calculator, I would do 2 times 4 negative x squared button plus 16 times 4 negative button plus 3, and you'll get y equals negative 29. That is the y-coordinate of our vertex. Remember, this one is a positive a, so we know it opens up. That makes our vertex a minimum value. Remember, our minimum value is always our y here. Y equals negative 29. Alright, and I think that's it. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to post this right now.